Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. It's such a pleasure to be able to be here with all of you to help to support you. I think my role is really around helping others care for themselves so that they can care for others. So my name is Victoria Granger. My pronouns are she and hers, and I've been working with Alberta Foster Kinship Association for a while now, and for quite a while with Cheryl and some of her other roles at Reach Edmonton as well. And I've been really excited to have Wellness Works Canada partner with AFKA to be able to offer you resources and tools and things that can help to support your well-being. Because I think, I mean, it may sound cliche, but you have to put on your mask first before you can help other people. And you need to be able to have the supports and resources that you need. And so there are different resources that are being made available. I had a meeting with them this morning, actually, just around some of the caregiver chats and other things that are happening. And we're just doing whatever we can to help make them a bit more supportive. And one of the things that we are doing, of course, is offering these sessions on supporting you. And of course, we always want to hear your feedback as well. If there's any particular topics that you're really interested in hearing about, that would be great. Currently, we did one on resilience. This one's on burnout. We're doing another one on self-care. We're doing on another one on helping to support our kiddos during meltdowns, because that's a tough one. And a whole bunch of other different topics. But if there's other things that you're thinking, hey, I'd really love to hear this, please follow up with me afterwards. I'll provide my contact information at the end, of course, or with the AFKA team just to help to support you through this journey because yeah, I would say that supporting the our kiddos is especially kiddos who may be coming into or out of going through kind of the system or having different challenges from a different caregivers or all the things that people are dealing with is probably one of the most challenging things that we can do, but one of the most rewarding things that we can do as well. But it's just so important that you get the support that you need to help you through this. And the talking about burnout, issue of burnout is really close to my heart. I think about my mom who burnt out, and I burnt out as well. And she was a survivor of really, really horrific child abuse. And I'm sure you've heard all kinds of stories of different kinds of abuse that can happen. And she actually ended up making it her kind of mission to help to support other people who were survivors of abuse. So she more helped adults, not the kiddos. But she gave so much because she was so passionate to it and gave everything and everything that she had, and it really had wreaked a havoc on her mental health, and she ended up experiencing major depressive disorder and going through a lot of different challenges and died by suicide at a very young age. And so I think my whole mission in life now today is to recognize and understand and carry on the message that we really have to be well to do well. When we're supporting other people and we're supporting our kiddos who have such big challenges, they are going to do as well as we are. We need to be strong and healthy, and that sometimes that means setting some of these boundaries and having that time for yourself, even if it's a minute here and there, to help support yourself so that you can show up fully and be present without having and not, so that you're just fully present and that you're able to do that work. And so I'm going to launch just another poll here just to check on everyone and see if you believe that you have experienced burnout before. So I'm just going to launch this to say yes, no, or not likely, or yes, no, or likely. Usually, if it's a no, it's a no. Okay. Yeah. So the results are telling. So what I am seeing so far is that about 80% of you have, 10% no, and 10% likely. Oh, it's shifting a little bit. Okay, yeah. And I mean, I think burnout is something that's very pervasive, and we don't always really know when we have it. And what's also interesting about it is that it is a insidious thing that can creep up on us and come up on us slowly. And then sometimes we get to this crashing point where like, oh yeah, that's definitely what it was. And sometimes we might not know we're quite in the midst of it. And usually someone else, our partners or someone, will be able to see it in us before we see it because we are just trying to do the best that we can in the work that we're doing. And so I'll share the results here with you. As you can see, it went down a little bit. It was about 73% yes, 9% no, 18% likely. So yeah, if it was a likely, it was probably a yes. So today, what we're really going to be doing is talking about how to recognize it and how to mitigate it and how to prevent it most of all. And I know a lot of you have experienced it all as well. So I think understanding all the dimensions is going to be really important for us today as well. And when we're going through today's discussion, I want to make sure that we just do have a brave space. I think sometimes supporting yourself is something that takes bravery. I always used to think that being super resilient meant just having a lot of grit, not admitting when things were going wrong, just being able to go through everything and endure everything. But really, I think the truth is that resilience is really being about being humble and realizing our own limitations and being able to swallow our pride so that we can get the support that we need when we need it, take the breaks when we need it, and get that support. And so, yeah, as we're going through today, I just want to make sure and remind all of us to listen with respect, without interruption, suspend judgment, always just be curious instead, try to encourage other people's ideas, appreciate unique perspectives, and just be open-minded and experimental and try to put distractions away, which I know sometimes is impossible. But today it's actually quite quiet this evening. My kiddos are over somewhere else, and my pets are also seemingly quiet. It must be nap time. So so that's good. So hopefully I'll be able to be super focused for you all tonight. So I just wanted to go in through and just talk a little bit about what burnout is, and so that we all have a clear definition of it. I know I asked you if you've experienced it before defining it, but I think we all kind of have a bit of an idea of what it is and what it entails. It's interesting because the World Health Organization, I mean, there's caregiver burnout, and then there's the World Health Organization definition that talks about the occupational piece of it. But I would say that being a caregiver is, if not probably more demanding for sure than an occupation than your traditional occupation, right? Because it's a 24/7 thing, it doesn't really end. There's so much emotional turmoil that can come through it, all of these different things. But the characteristics are very similar across both. So it's just resulting from chronic stress, where we haven't had the support that we've needed, and we're going to feel exhausted. Of course, that's like a given. That would be a given sign. Another one is just feeling a mental distance. So again, this is a mental distance from our kiddos, or feeling maybe even cynicism related to different things, and just not feeling like we're able to keep up on top of the work that we're doing. And when we think about some of the things that we might see in ourselves, I think it's important to stop and take stock. So some of them might include things like, less motivation. We might feel more numb, just like we're dragging our way through the day, just trying to get through, minute by minute. You may find that people around you drain you, or normally they may help support you. Again, depending on your personality type, if you're more introverted, ambivert, extrovert, etc. You might become a little bit more irritable. So, for example, just like sounds around you might suddenly seem a little too loud. People are too loud. You might just be more cynical, like I said. You might feel like you are working extra hard, but you're getting less done in your like personal and professional life and parenting life, or, caregiving life. You might also find that you're getting sick more often, and here I am sick, but I think it's just because it's the flu season. I've been around a lot of kids, and you know how kids carry germs. And so, but what happens is the reason that we get sick more often when we're experiencing burnout is because during periods of chronic stress, our bodies produce a lot of cortisol, and cortisol actually is good for our immune system, but of course bad for a lot of other human functions. And so when it's at a high level for a long period of time, what happens is our body starts to become depleted, and we literally run out of it. And so then all of a sudden, after being at a heightened level of like, let's fight this off, it's just we come down with everything. And if you think about, the time you go on vacation or the weekend that you finally have to yourself, and that's when you get sick, that's why, right? It's you finally have the downtime, your guard is off, and then it's going to come and impact you. Some other symptoms that you might see when you're experiencing burnout are self-medication. So that could be food, TV, social media, gambling, internet, social media, like all these different things, alcohol. There's so many different things that might come into play that we will use to self-medicate ourselves. It could even be exercise, which may seem like a healthy thing, but we just go into extreme, and then that helps to support us as well. And I think for myself personally, when I was experiencing burnout and dealing with some issues from caregiving and stuff that my kiddos were going through, I tried to kind of distract myself and numb myself. So I would do whatever I could to distract myself, to self-medicate, and just keep myself super busy so that I didn't have the time to process what was going on. And the unfortunate thing about that is that's just delaying the inevitable. Like it's going to catch up with you. You know, you can avoid it as much as you want right now, but you can either deal with it in due time, or it might just come crashing down on you. So again, finding that time to and space to process is important. And of course, you're going to feel exhausted, like I talked about, no matter how much you sleep. And so when I think about the role that all of you have, when you think about it, if someone was to interview you for a job and say, okay, here's your job description. Okay, so your job is you've got full-time operations. You have to have really good scheduling and time management skills. You've got to have great problem-solving skills. You have to be able to provide comfort and emotional support. You need to know how to meal prepare and provide nutritional support and emergency response, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of skills. It's so much, right? It's really full-time, 24/7, no breaks, and very little financial compensation, right? When we're thinking about it, little to none. And of course, there's a lot to it, right? But of course, I think we all know that the reason that we all do this work is because the rewards are priceless. It's so priceless. It's so rewarding to understand and see the difference we can make in a kiddo's life who maybe didn't have the opportunities that they needed or that they deserved, and to give them that stability and to give them that support, whether it's short term or long term. And so, what we're going to be focusing in on today are a little bit of the trends that we've seen in terms of burnout, things like that. I really want you to do a bit of self-reflection to see maybe where the risk factors that you have. So we all have different levels of risk factors, any signs and symptoms you might be experiencing. We'll talk about stigma, and I think, and a reason we were talking about stigma is because it is the number one thing that prevents us from getting support, for asking for help, for being honest and candid about what we're going through. And I think the only thing that can help us to to get better if we're not doing well is to be able to be open and vulnerable and talk about what we're going through. And in fact, that's good for the kiddos too, to understand that we're human beings too, right? That we all go through stuff, and it's important to yeah, to just to be human in that way and to be vulnerable. And then of course supports and strategies that will help to support you if you are if you're wanting to prevent a burnout, if you're in the midst of it, or you're starting to ramp up towards it, no matter, where you're at. And so when we think about, again, from the stats that I saw just from you, and it's not a huge group here tonight, but definitely most of you have experienced burnout, or you're thinking you may have. And so, I mean, it's on par with the trends that we've been seeing. I think we think that, I mean, most people are experiencing burnout these days, like 7% of them are saying that. Um, and this is real an interesting piece, because this is who would say that they're experiencing this in the workplace, because that's my background is workplace, but I'm also a caregiver. But then also only one in four caregivers says report this for report mental health. And I have to wonder about the statistics in the questioning, or like how those were all came to be. There's also, of course, the when we're thinking about it, a lot of us will be playing another role, of course, having another job, or, and also caregiving. And so it's really an extra shift that compound some of the stress that we have. There's financial burden with all of it, all these kinds of things when we think about the unpaid care that we offer, nonstop. And so I just want to provide the message that, you aren't alone. A lot of us are going through this, and the more honest and open we are about what we are experiencing, the more likely we're going to be able to get the support that we need to help to support us. And so when we were talking about the risks and the signs and the symptoms, I mentioned a few of them already, but there are a lot of other different risk factors. There's both personal risk factors, so ones that maybe you have internally, as well as ones that are put upon you by your kiddos or your job or your spouse or your family or your community. And so it's helpful to think about the personal ones first. So the personal ones, so for myself, I experienced burnout and I remember I was, yeah, supporting a young little boy. I was completing my master's degree. I was working full time and I was just I was competing in sports. I was doing all kinds of things. And when I experienced it, it really kind of laid me on my back. Like I think it had been going on for a long, long, long time, and I was just ignoring it. I was thinking, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. And of course, it was not. And I had all of the personal risk factors. So it wasn't so much about the expectations that came to me from my job and from my spouse and from the kids. It was really of expectations I had for myself. So I expected myself to perform at, 100% all the time. I did not have the bravery to admit when I wasn't doing well or when I needed a break. I didn't have that vulnerability. And so I felt like that maybe I wasn't good enough, that I maybe just wasn't doing well enough. Wasn't really feeling fully appreciated, which happens. And so most of the unreasonable demands that I had were things that I put upon myself and not that others put upon me. Now, there's a good book around about burnout, and I forget the author's name, but she talks about the canary in the mine. I don't know if anyone's heard of it before, but they say if a canary goes into a mine that's full of smoke and dust and pollution and toxic things, is it the canary's fault that it gets exposed to this toxicity and get sick, or is it the mind that's causing it, right? So there's always this like not nature versus nurture. It's a little bit different than that, but like, are we putting ourselves into this position, or is it the environment that's impacting us? And of course, it's a combination of both things. So sometimes we have personality characteristics that put us higher at risk. So it's just good to take stock and think of, if you have any of these characteristics. I know I had all of them. And some of these feelings may not be accurate. Our feelings are not facts. These are just how I felt. But yeah, sometimes we have these perceptions. And so then when we're thinking about externally, what are the signs and symptoms to look out for in each other? So maybe from a spouse, I've seen a few couples here, or just externally, you're looking in on yourself. Are you experiencing any of these things? So some of these might be and I think it's important, sorry, to recognize that it is insidious and it's often slow to come on, and it can take a really long time to recover from. In fact, they say that the research says that it can take up to 2 years to fully, completely recover from burnout because it comes on, it takes so long to come on, so it also takes a long time to recover from. And so oftentimes, if we are so well intentioned and we're high achievers and we want to do the best that we can and support the people that we're caring for, and we're giving everything emotionally and physically, we end up depleting it pretty quickly because we don't have this balance. And it seems so counterintuitive to say, oh, okay, what, I've got a lot of demands, so I'm just going to take a break. Like that's not the thing we normally think of. But in fact, if we want to move from this vicious cycle that leads us to burnout into a resilient cycle, the best thing that we can do is take pause and give ourselves the break to support ourselves, to prevent us from cycling downwards and not being able to give everything that we've been wanting to give. And so again, we might see all of these different types of symptoms in ourselves. So it can be just helpful to think about when where we are. And I think one of the things that can really impact us as well is whenever we think our integrity is questioned. That's often a sign. So just again, just take stock and think about it for yourself. I do actually have um, a little questionnaire that you can all do, and you're going to have to, here, I'm going to put it in the chat for you so that you can have a moment to do it and to do this self-reflection, and then you can also see where you stand. So I have to make sure it's hyperlinked. So one moment. Oops. And whenever I do these, I get a little bit surprised myself, I have to say, and not necessarily in a good way, because my job is to help support people to prevent burnout and all of these kinds of things. And yet, even though I feel like I've gone through it and I've recovered from it, it's a constant battle of because I have these personal risk factors to challenge it and to battle it. So in the chat there's a quick link. And so you can click on begin quiz once you enter that, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to complete this. It doesn't take too long. And then I'll just give you a moment, no pressure whatsoever to share your results, but I'll just give you a minute to do that. And when you're done, just throw in the chat that you're done so I can get a sense of everyone's done. I'm doing it with you too, just to help with the timing, but you never know. The one on respite is interesting because it's like good luck finding that, right? So this will give you a score out of 0 to 30, just to kind of give you a sense where you're at. And there are some results, or there are some, a little bit of supports and stuff like that. But this is more just of a self-assessment, and I'll talk more about other resources as well that might be more applicable as we go along. Has everyone had the chance to kind of go through? Not quite. Okay, we'll give you another minute. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Sylvie. And I know some of them are quite different. There's another like workplace burnout assessment that I like, and it gives me a higher score that I want to see. This one gives me a bit of a lower score. But either way, I think the number is like the color is more applicable. If it's more of a reddish, then that probably is still pretty high. And so I just a point about these results too. Of course, they are caregiving is very different from different perspectives, whether it is, oh, thank you, depending who you're caregiving for. And of course, we're all, foster kinship, those kinds of things. and it's different than caring maybe for someone with dementia or our own kids or just aging parents or all the things, the types of caregiving that may come into play. And I know the language lately has been of caregivers, the word instead of fostering kinship. But of course, I think sometimes in the media this that gets confused about what it actually entails. But some of the symptoms and stuff are definitely similar. So thank you for sharing. Is everyone done now? Just about. I know some of you or a couple of you are doing it together. Yeah, I'm seeing nods. Okay. So it's just important to kind of see where you're at, and no matter where you're at, it's so important to stay up top of it and ahead of it. And so I'll ask you all a quick little question. How many of you brush your teeth every day? I'm seeing hands. Okay. Yeah. So probably we all brush our teeth every day. But then how many of us intentionally do something to support our mental hygiene and to support our mental well-being every day intentionally that's just as strong as of a habit as brushing our teeth? Did any of you do something just as often? Probably not as often, right? I'm seeing a little just yeah, maybe not. So and I think when we think about the old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, it is so true. I mean, we can look at our current state and no matter where we are, taking actions to help to support ourselves to prevent burnout is so key. And when I think about, like what happened to my mom, that's the ultimate sacrifice of what can happen when we don't intentionally support ourselves. And I experienced it as well, but I'm still always struggling to work on it and stay on top of it. And I mean, it's sometimes it's counterintuitive because we have so many dreams and put upon us, and we think that the more we give, the better we're going to support our kiddos. But of course, the more we give, the more likely we are headed to burnout, and the less likely we're going to be able to provide for our kiddos. And so, shifting our mindset into understanding that we have to be well to do well is really so key in terms of being for us to be sustainable, and to be in for the long haul and not just for a short sprint. And so, as I was saying, one of the number of reasons people don't get help or don't do the preventative work is because of stigma. And it's interesting. I teach mental health first aid. I've been teaching it for over 10 years now. And the statistics are always interesting to me. It's that 1 in 2 people will have a mental health diagnosis in their lifetime, but only 1 in 7 people will actually get help. And so, the statistics of how many people actually have a mental health diagnosis are likely misrepresented because so many people don't even get help after diagnosis. So, how many people even go get a diagnosis, right? And the same thing with the prevention. I think oftentimes we just think about yeah, just doing the best work we can, trying to be supportive, trying to be helpful. But stigma gets in our way. It's often the self stigma of thinking, okay, maybe we're not strong enough or we're not good enough or we should be tougher. We should be able to handle this work because we got into it because we care about it. We're passionate about it. We just need to push through. And of course, we're all human beings and we all have limits. And the more that we can admit when we need to take pause and when we need support, the more likely we are going to be able to actually be a lot stronger. So it's counterintuitive. Brene Brown has lots of great research and talks about this. She says there's no bravery without vulnerability. We need to be that is what is being brave. It's being vulnerable, admitting when we're not up to speed, when we need help or when we need support. And so I think that's just one of the most important things. And I have a whole life story I'm not going to share with you of overcoming challenges and different things, abuse, homelessness, a number of different things. And for me, I think the one thing that helped me get out all of that and helped me to get to be stronger was just to lay it out, just lay it out on the table, and to be honest and vulnerable about it. And that's what enabled me to get help. But that's also what prevented me from getting better sooner. It took me a good 10 years to get into recovery from some of my life stories that I'm not sharing with you today, but maybe another time. And so again, the more that we can be open and honest and vulnerable about where we are, the more likely we are going to be able to get help, get support, and to do better. And when we think about again, the way to prevent this is just having this authenticity, but also having this empathy for each other, having self-empathy, self-compassion, and empathy for other people, looking at yourself as, hey, if I was this kiddo and if I was going through this tough time, or if I was a child, what would I say to my younger self or to this person who's going through this tough time? Would I tell them to take a break? Would I tell them to pause? Or would I tell them just push through and toughen up? And when I think about the definition of empathy, Seth Godin has a good one. He just talks about it as he's actually a marketing guru of all things, but he talks about it as if you put yourself into somebody else's shoes. Yes, we all kind of get that, but then you'll have to think a little bit deeper and think, okay, if I had lived this person's life experiences, if I'd had their education, if I had their upbringing, if I knew all their friends were the same and all my experiences were exactly the same, they would be right. I would make the same decisions as they were doing, as they were making. I would act in the same way, and um and then you just have full empathy, you have full support for them. And so I think pushing that onto yourself as well, is important to be able to support yourself to overcome stigma by being understanding that it's okay to sometimes not be okay, and that can help us move forwards. So I want to talk straight about some strategies. So I already, to help to support ourselves to recognize, prevent, and mitigate burnout. And one of them is this is actually an illustration from a book from a lady named Deborah Connors. And she sits on the advisory board of Wellness Works Canada. And she talks a lot about supporting people who support others, basically. So they could be caregivers, it could be healthcare workers, it could be just people who care for others. And she says, oftentimes we'll feel like, okay, we have so much to give, we have so much to share with other people. And then when things get hard, it's like, okay, now it's just the time for grit. Now is the time to work harder and push harder, and and ignore the signs, ignore the symptoms. And what happens is you get tired, you get less effective, but you just keep pushing through. And then what happens is you start to maybe self-medicate, you're not sleeping as well, you're not feeling as well, you're more irritable, all of the things, and you're just trying to put on a good show, but you're not doing well, and you're getting burnout, and it just goes into this vicious cycle. And again, what is counterintuitive, but what actually is more effective, is this idea that we have to be well to do well. So when things get going, when the things get are tough, it's actually the time where you take more times for breaks, you take more pause, you take more time for exercise, sleep, eating well, whatever it is. And this doesn't mean it's like, okay, I'm taking hours a day or a week or whatever, or a big long vacation, because that's not going to be realistic. But like, where can I take even the 2 minute power of the pause, if you've heard of that, where it's like you take 90 seconds just to go recharge and take time for yourself to go breathe and do whatever it is that you need to do. And when you take more of these intentional breaks, it gives you more time to intentionally plan your days, and your weeks and your months, and be able to prioritize more effectively, see through the weeds of what's going on, have much clearer perspective, and be a better caregiver, and provide better support. So so I think I would say one of the number one strategies to support yourself in beating burnout is this mindset shift, and understanding that you have to be well to do well. And of course, there's all kinds of different things that impact us. Our resilience is the internal dialogues and thoughts. So that's our mindset that we just chatted about. Of course, the stressor, how big is it? How small is it? And I think some of the stressors that you're feeling are definitely higher than than some of the average population. So those are high. And then there's also the external. It's like, what are the other resources and tools and skills that maybe you could access to help to support yourself through this? And all these things in combination are what are going to help us to learn how to be resilient, and to prevent and mitigate and deal with burnout. So I'm going to share a few other strategies here for you about how to support ourselves in setting one practical goal. And so I like to try to make the sessions practical, so that we walk away with some kind of goal, one particular thing that it is that we want to do. And so I'm following a methodology. It's an evidence-based goal setting methodology called WHOOP. And so basically, what we're doing is we're thinking about what is our wish, like what do we want to be different? What's going to be the result of that? What are the obstacles that might get in our way? And what is the plan that we are going to follow to overcome that obstacle? And so I'm going to share a few different things that we can all do on top of the mindset shift of understanding that we have to be well to do well and go into that. But one of the most important things I think is to think about what your why is like why do you want to make a shift and a change to help to support yourself? And I mean, the quick, easy answer is, well, I don't want to be burnt out, right? But why don't you want to be burnt out? Maybe because you want to be a better caregiver. Well, why do you want to be a better caregiver? Well, it's because, you want to see your kiddos thrive and have a supportive environment. And why do you want that? And you sometimes when you ask yourselves the question 5 times, it can get down to your real why. And so, like for myself, I have something that's really close to my heart. I mentioned that my mom died by suicide at a young age of 37. And of course, for me, when I think about what I lost as a child and how much she had to give to the world, for me, I think that would be kind of my ultimate why. And that's a pretty profound one, of course, is like I want to be there now for my kiddos and I want to be able to provide them, be there and support them. But I would like to give you a moment here just to think about what is your why and why would you want to make a change. So I'm going to share with you a couple of practical strategies and I want you all to pick one thing that you want to do. It may not be one of the things I share. It might be something that popped up in your head as we're chatting. But just think about that for yourself for a minute. Does anyone have any whys that they would like to share? Good job, Laura. 7. That's a good number. Just grounding yourself in the why is something that just helps us to understand. Just to have it just grounds us. It helps us know why we're making a decision. So thank you. You're a new foster mom, so that might change. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, that may change. Yeah, we shall see, right? All right. So hopefully you have some idea. So just a couple of the different strategies that I wanted to focus on here are kind of just based on the medicine wheel framework and just thinking about if you're not that familiar with it, it's the circular shape kind of helps to look at the cyclical nature of life and how everything's so interconnected and to think about the balance and the harmony between all of the things. And so oftentimes we might think of different things in isolation, but everything is so connected. And of course, we can't do it all at once. So we're going to look at all areas, but I just want you to think of one goal that you want to work on. And so the West is really the emotional, thinking about acknowledging your feelings, practicing honest communications, forgiving yourself, forgiving others, having understanding what your vision and maybe what your why is in your life and what your values are. Understanding that it's okay to have the low days. Like I was talking before, like it is okay to not be okay. We are human beings. We all have low days. Having the sense of self-awareness is important. I will send a link to you to a mental health continuum self-check, which can be helpful to see where am I at today. You did a bit of a self-awareness check on in terms of the burnout scale, but this other one is a good just daily or weekly check-in to see, where am I at this week? So knowing yourself is important. Reaching out for help, this is something that actually makes you stronger, not weaker. It's a sign of strength. So there's so many pieces to that. The north and spiritual is there's so many things we can do around that, right? There's smudging, taking time to pray in whatever way that works for you, engaging in traditional ceremonies, spending time in nature. Nature is so powerful to supporting ourselves, even though it's getting colder outside, we still can go out there and enjoy it. Learning more about yourself and your identity and your culture. Participate in talking circles in the community, practicing gratitude. There's so many things we can do. From the south here, there's so much again for mental, like connection with family and friends, journaling. So you can be connecting with yourself, connecting with other people, seeking advice from someone, setting goals, getting involved in the community. And then the physical piece is usually self-explanatory and what a lot of people think of with as well with the self-care. But it's again, doing things like exercising, sleeping well, eating well, drinking enough water, limiting caffeine and other substances, all those kinds of things. So I'll just share a couple of different things. So from the mental and the self side of things, the self-awareness is really, really important. So we spent quite a bit of time on that. I talked about signs and symptoms and risk factors for burnout. And doing regular check-ins with yourself can be really helpful. There's actually a practice that you can do with your kiddos and as a family that can also be helpful for this self-awareness for everybody involved and also awareness of each other. And it's called the rose, bud, and thorn. Has anyone heard of that before? So basically, you just as at the dinner or whenever you have the chance to sit down for a couple of minutes at a time. I know sometimes it's challenging. You just have everyone share what was a rose of your day, what was a positive thing from your day, what was a thorn, what was a pain in your butt, like what did you not enjoy about the day, and what was a bud, what was something that was maybe not great, but not necessarily good, but maybe something that was promising or something you want to work on or some kind of challenge you want to work through. And it's just kind of a nice way to connect and give a little bit of structure to asking the question of, so how was your day? Because sometimes, we just draw a blank. So it makes it a bit more specific and making it a habit can be something that we can do. Another thing to build our self-awareness is just to understand and be honest with ourselves about the lies that we tell ourselves. So some of the lies that we tell ourselves are, I am fine, everything's fine. It's everyone else around me, right? It's just everything else that's going on, or I love what's going on. I want to take on more, even though, or I'm just tired. I'll be better as soon as I take a quick break. But of course, we want to be living in the moment and not just living for having a break. And so we might be telling ourselves too, well, this will just pass. I just need to get back on the top of my game. If people just let me do what I'm trying to do, then I'll just be better. Or it's not me, it's everyone and everything else. And these are common narratives that we will tell ourselves. And it's important to recognize that these are common. And it's okay if we catch ourselves saying these things, but it's also okay to not be okay and to need a break and to take the time for ourselves. And self-awareness is something that's really key. I'm checking out your kitty there, Sharon. I'm jealous because I don't know where my cats went. I've got two cats and they're just, I don't know, they're sleeping, I guess. Aw, so cute. Thank you for sharing. So this is, I'll throw this in the chat as well. So this is that self-check that I was talking about before. And it's just a nice little way. It's an interactive self-check. So you can click on where you think you are or how you're feeling. And it'll tell you where you're at. And if you're in the healthy or reacting zone, usually a bit of self-care is going to be enough maybe to help you get through. But if you're in the orange or ill zone, and that's totally okay, we are all there at some point in time in our lives. That might be a time where we want to reach out and get a little bit more professional support or do something a little bit more intense just to help to support ourselves to get through this. So that can be a thing. So that's one of the goals of supporting our mental health is through self-awareness, is doing these check-ins and just being honest, brutally honest with ourselves and others, and practicing vulnerability if we're not doing okay. When we're thinking about the spiritual side of things and the north side, one thing that can really help us, because I don't know about you, but as a caregiver, sometimes it feels like you go one step forwards, two steps back, and and back again. And sometimes some of the things that we're doing, you might be doing things right, but it can be really challenging. And I've heard from some different courses that I've taken that it's like if you're doing things right 30% of the time, you're winning. You're doing a great job, right? In raising kiddos. But the thing is we often focus on the negatives and what we're not doing right. And that is something that is a huge contributor to burnout. If we are only thinking of what we didn't do or what we should have done, we're not going to be as good. So the more that we focus in on the positives, just like positive parenting, and we're focusing on the positives of what our kids are doing that's good, our own selves are going to have a better sense of efficacy, and we're going to be able to do better. And so one thing that I like to do, oh, there's two different practices. One of them is just this practice of self-efficacy is like every night before you go to bed, only focus on one win that you had that day, one little win, one little breakthrough, one little nod that you got, or whatever it was, where you felt like you made a success. And it's just a simple thing, but it helps you kind of reframe from focusing on the negatives of what you need to fix, which our brains are pre-wired for. And the other one is around gratitude. And this is something you can do as a family as well. And with your kiddos, is just really thinking about and focusing in on the things, on the blessings, on the positive things, again, instead of the negatives. And the research shows that practicing gratitude, I was going to get you these jars. I got these gratitude jars for my kiddos where I'm like, I write down, and it's a journey in progress. But I've got post-it notes, pink ones and blue ones and yellow ones, like different colors from different kids, where I like write one thing that I appreciate about them in the jar, and I try to do it like a couple a week. And it's not a lot, but they have a jar, but it helps me think about all the positives instead of the meltdowns or the negative things that distract you from that. And then it also helps them remind it and it of them of what's going on. And it's just a really nice thing. So I just went to the dollar store and I got like these cheap jars and sticky notes and some stickers to put on the outside to make them pretty. And it's just a nice, fun thing that can help everyone kind of focus in more on the positivity versus all the things that may not be going right, which, yeah, sometimes are hard to ignore. So that's another thing, two other different exercises. So again, one self-awareness, the other one is around self-efficacy, writing down a win every night, and practicing gratitude. One or the other. Again, only pick one thing. The other one, in terms of the East and the physical aspect of things, is thinking about time for recovery and breaks. So this goes hand in hand with mindset. If we don't have the mindset that we understand that time for recovery is going to help us, we probably aren't going to take that time for recovery. So we need both things. But I actually used to compete in triathlon, and and on the side, I was a personal trainer and did different things. And I always thought that more was better, but it's actually the opposite. So I had the opportunity to compete in Team Canada, which was an amazing experience for in triathlon. And I was training 6 to 7 days a week. And I noticed that as soon as I actually stopped exercising and started taking breaks, that my strength actually recovered or got stronger. And the reason for that is just like our mental fitness, we put stress and we put mental strain on our brain or on our physical body, and we need time for recovery to grow stronger. If we don't, we're just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Like we need active times of recovery to support ourselves to be stronger. So thinking about supporting ourselves and taking breaks is going to be so important. And obviously, I'm a cat lover here, so hello, Sharon and I can hang out. Um, because I sometimes I'll switch it with a dog. I have this thing where I facilitated like mental health first aid with a dog lover, and he always put a dog up there, and I switched the slides on him one time, and I put up a cat instead of a dog, and he was not so happy with me. But anyways, I love dogs too. I just don't have one. I haven't had one. But anyways, cats know how to take breaks, right? Like they take a lot of breaks, maybe too many breaks. And so thinking about how we can intentionally take breaks that are going to recharge us can be so helpful. So and sometimes we're gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna take a break, but then we like, okay, I'm gonna go into the bathroom on my phone and I'm gonna be on social media for a time when, nobody can bother me. But if you're on the phone and on social media, it may be a distraction, but sometimes the amounts of information and stuff prevents us from processing emotionally the stuff that's going on. So it's better to try just to connect with yourself. So maybe it might be a mindfulness exercise, or it might be just walking outside for 5 minutes, or before you get home, if you're working before, or say you're working from home and you're waiting for your kids to get home, like giving yourself some kind of like 5 minutes to do something that gives you that like virtual commute if you're not commuting. And yeah, I know, right? Then you get an email and the break's over. So shut your phone off, put it away, do not look at it, and try to ignore it. Like I mean, the only way you should use your device for a break is if it is something that is giving you a break from other things. So it might be there's an app called Forest where it's like for every uninterrupted break, you plant a tree. There's another one. I'll share these with you in a link afterwards. There's another one about this where you get a little pet, and every self-care activity you do makes your pet healthier. Anyways, they're just fun little things for anyone who has ADHD. I hear they're very, very helpful because they give you lots of dopamine hits because you're doing the things, you're checking it off, and it's a lot of fun. But the most important thing about taking breaks is it has to be intentional and it has to be planned. And you need to plan it just as like it's an important meeting with the kids or, your bedtime reading routine or whatever it is you have. It has to be just as important as other things that you've got going on in your life. And you have to have the mindset first to understand again that you have to be well in order to do well. And these breaks are actually going to support yourself because if you don't intentionally take the time to disconnect from your phone, your kids, the demands of your life, someone else will plan that time for you. So then the other one, of course, is self-care, and this can go in any area of the wheel. So again, connecting with nature, connecting with yourself, mindfulness, those sorts of things, is going to be important. Martyrdom and believing it, you can do it all, and the more you push yourself is going to actually have the opposite effect that you want it to have. And so you need to be able to take those breaks. And so the example that I would give is, Dr. Becky, you've probably heard of her before. She's like this parenting guru. And she talks about, she gives the analogy of a pilot. So say there's a pilot out there and a pilot saying, I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to work 24/7. I'm going to keep flying. And because I care about my passengers so much. And she's like, okay, no, that's not going to happen because, legislation is mandated by law that this person needs to sleep to ensure the safety of the people on the plane, right? You have to get enough sleep for the safety of everybody. And so this is kind of a mindset hack just to think about self-care. I would say the foundation of self-care is the ability to set boundaries and to prioritize yourself when in this. And again, it has the opposite effect that we often think it will have. And so, yeah, so that is just thinking about what is it that fills your cup? And it could be anything. I used to think it was exercise, and then I realized that was just pressure because I had felt like I had to perform the exercise I was doing. I was like counting, how many RPMs per minute and like all this stuff. And it was actually causing more stress. And then I switched and saying, I'm going to watch Netflix and exercise. And that way I got the adrenaline out and I enjoyed it and it was much better, right? But it's finding out what works for you. And it's very different for different people. And then the last one, before I want you to start to think about and commit what it is that you want to do, is around social connection. It is so, so, so important. So oftentimes we think of connecting with other people. We know it's a nice thing to do, but it is really critical. I think we saw through the pandemic that when we don't connect with people, lots of bad things happen, right? Like look at the echo pandemic of poor mental health, where rates of anxiety quadrupled and the rates of depression doubled, and substance abuse and misuse increased. Actually, they changed the word now. It's substance. I forget what it is. They just changed the name about a month ago of like what's politically correct. But anyways, there's so many things that are going on that are impacting us and we're social beings and joining those caregiver chats and knowing the people that we can connect with to give us that support is so 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 important. There are countries in the world who have ministers of loneliness to tackle this issue. I think because through technology, the pandemic, all these things, we become less and less connected, and this really impacts our kiddos too, right? Like, I mean, social media and stuff is so unhealthy. YouTube, all the stuff. It actually, people feel more connected than ever, but are more disconnected than ever because we don't have real human interaction and connection. And so we need to think about, and we don't need a lot of people. It's the quality, not the quantity of people that can support us. So think about who it is in your life that can give you empathy when you need it, give you some humor when you need it, purpose, perspective, vision, pushback, politics, all these things. But again, it only needs to be 2 to 3 people is what will help support us depending on if we're extroverted or introverted. So again, think about who those people are and set an intentional goal of how you can connect with them. For myself, mid-pandemic, I connected. with another well, mom, and we decided that every Thursdays we were going to go for a walk, no matter what the weather was like. If it was super cold, we would drive to Tim Hortons and sit in the car and drink a tea or something like that. But if it was warm, we would actually go inside and walk. And it's been, I would say, a lifesaver to keep that connection with someone else and have that opportunity just to vent and talk about stuff. It makes such a big difference. And it's 30 minutes a week. Like it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it makes a world of a difference in terms of that time for escape. So again, I talked about a lot of things. And so normally I'd like to go in a breakout. Would you like to go in a breakout or would you like to self-reflect and set your own goal? You can throw it in the chat, say group or self-reflect. Yeah, it depends if you're a morning or an evening person. I find in the evening it's just nice to do it on your own versus do it as a group. So most people are wanting to do self. Okay, that's totally fair. And I've been talking at you a lot. So these are the things that I'd like you to think about. And I'd like you to try to set a goal of what it is, what's one thing that you would like to do to help to support yourself to either prevent, mitigate, or deal with burnout. And these are just a couple of examples, but there may be other things that you were interested in doing as well. And if there's something else that popped up in your mind that I was talking about, like a very specific thing, like walking with a friend once a week or whatever it is, doing the like the gratitude jars with kids and everyone sharing things that you appreciate with each other, all whatever it is. Only pick one thing that you want to do, and that will help to support yourself. And I think the rule of behavior change is to set the bar so low that you're going to trip over it. So make it super easy, like unfailable, and you're going to be more likely to follow through, and then maybe continue to build on that. So I'm uploading a goal setting worksheet in here. So it's in the chat. So this can help you. Um, of setting that WOOP goal. And this one is called The Power of Connection. This is the wrong one that I uploaded, but that's okay. It's still relevant because, as I was saying, connection is very important. So it could be any of these goals, but maybe the daily self check-in from that link that I sent, celebrating your wins daily. So gratitude or sense of self-efficacy, meaningful breaks, self-care, or connection. And then while you're doing that, I have another handout I'll upload the actual correct one. This is a little bit more detailed workbook, not just a worksheet. So it kind of gives you an opportunity to set a few different goals because oftentimes we set one goal, may not go as we plan, and we have to revamp, and that's okay. And I think understanding that this is a continuous journey of improvement is important as well because it takes a long time to shift mindset and to do the things that are going to support us to be able to do better. And as you're doing that, just remember that building resilience is a journey. It's not a destination. And again, there are more sessions. So we are doing another one on the power of connection. We're going to be talking about keeping calm when kids are melting down. Um, my son actually has intermittent explosive disorder, so lots of personal life, life experience with that one. Also self-care. But if there's other topics that you want to hear about, you can throw them in the chat or follow up with me afterwards because we want to make sure that they are relevant for you and supportive of you as well. And then the interim here as well is my contact information. Anyone have a goal in mind they want to share? and I take your time with the goal setting, but I also threw up an evaluation. When we do group out breakouts, there's a lot more discussion back and forth. And when we don't do them, there's a little more self-reflection and time for you to do it on your own time. And so I hope you find the workbook useful to help to support you. And also there is an evaluation to help us continually improve in the work that we're doing. So I hope you have the opportunity to do that. It only takes a couple of minutes. Thank you for sharing, exercising the self-care and connecting with friends. Yeah, it's so good. When we're just caught up in caregiving, sometimes we forget about life outside of our immediate family, right? Of the kiddos that we're caring for and everyone else. And it's so important to intentionally make time for that, or we will lose that time. Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here today. I'm going to stay online for the next 10, 15 minutes, however long. And if anyone has any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. And I'd love to hear of any goals that you're wanting to set for yourself. Sometimes when we just put it in writing and share it with someone else, even if they're not holding us accountable, it just makes us feel more accountable as well. So I wish you the best in supporting yourselves and all the work that you do. And thank you for everything that you do as well.